I want to go to a safety issue that no previous Secretary of Transportation has ever had to deal with. The president talked about it today, and that is masks in public transportation, interstate transportation, every airport, every airplane. How are you going to enforce that? What's the mechanism in place that's ready to go for that?
Yeah, the DOT has always been about safety, whether we're talking about the FAA and air travel in this country or any of the other kind of dimensions of the department. Usually when we think about safety and transportation, of course, we're thinking about preventing crashes, and that continues to be a core mission of the department. But now we've been reminded of a whole other element of traveler and worker safety and transportation. That's preventing the spread of the virus. It's why the president acted right away with an executive order that's laying out the need for mask mandates to use those federal authorities, whether we're talking about airports, airplanes, intercity buses, trains, essentially wherever there's a federal responsibility to keep passengers and workers safe. That extends to doing something about keeping them safe from COVID. We're going to be, if confirmed, I'll have a chance to join a department that is already getting to work on implementing and executing those orders because there's no time to lose. The authorities are there. We've got to make sure that they're used in the right way to keep Americans safe. And in the end, you know, we all want to see a return to normal. Part of what it's going to take to build back a transportation and travel industry that's really been decimated by this virus is for there to be a perception and a reality that any traveler is safe, which of course means making sure those safety measures are in place.
You talked about something today that I've heard others struggle trying to phrase correctly, what you call transportation equity. And it's the concept of we might need different things for different people. And somebody, you know, who has a $150,000 Mercedes and pulls out of the driveway just cares about what's going on in the pavement in his community. The person who might come to clean that person's home has to care about the bus system, might have to care about the rail system in other ways of getting to that same place that wealth allows you to just drive to and from. How do you take that into account in real policy terms?
That's right. Transportation equity means making sure that we have policies that serve everybody, whether you own a vehicle or not. Whether you live in an area that has historically been well served with a lot of transit routes or well-funded infrastructure or not. And we know, for example, when it comes to racial justice in this country, this is one of the biggest things that I think is at stake in transportation policy. So many neighborhoods, often black neighborhoods, one of two things happened. Either they didn't get transportation resources at all, were neglected, had transit deserts, meaning that residents were cut off from opportunity, or the opposite happened. Investment happened, but it happened in the worst way, like in the form of a highway going right through a neighborhood. And again, often this was in predominantly black and brown neighborhoods that didn't have the political power to resist some of what was going on or to weigh in to shape it. This is something we have a historic opportunity to do something about because I think we're going to be positioned to make historic investments. And so listening is going to be so important. Listening to local leaders, engaging with state and local, and by the way, territorial and tribal citizens and governments that have so much at stake. And that's part of what I'm really excited to do in the department.
I don't know if I think you're too humble to have picked up the dynamic in the room today, but you had a lot of people who were basically supplicants to you today. They know you're going to be the Treasury Secretary. They know you're going to have a hand in funding and projects that can affect their lives. That's why you were getting all those invitations. Senator Wicker wants you to come to Mississippi. He wants to show you some projects down there. Senator Sinema wants you to come out to Arizona, see the interstate projects she wants to work on. Ed Markey, of course, needs you to come up to the Cape Cod Canal to see the Sagamore Bridge and the Bourne Bridge that need to be replaced. You got a lot of invitations, and that is, of course, because they recognize they're going to have to come to you when those big packages are being put together involving financing of those kinds of projects. How do you sort them out? How do you look at a project and say, this one has value, this one does not measure up to the value of the other one?
Well, we've got to make sure that we are transparent about the criteria, especially as grant programs are developed. And those criteria have to include a lot of things. It's making sure that it leads to the main economic and other policy priorities that the president's put forward. We just spoke about equity. Clearly, that's going to be an important consideration. Climate is a huge consideration because, some transportation projects show more promise than others in helping the U.S. lead the world on dealing with greenhouse gas emissions. Remember, the transportation sector right now is the largest sector in the U.S. contributing to those CO2 emissions. So, I'm looking forward to working. I'm looking forward to the trips for sure. I've been invited everywhere from the Gulf Coast to Alaska, and I'll certainly be eager to do that. But also to working with these senators to make sure that we're meeting those policy goals with all of those projects that we're contemplating.